But if she doesn't, I have a house that I need to price this morning and would be happy to use as the guinea pig, unless one of you would like to have something else you'd like us to explore.
No, I like doing yours.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, Rebecca. I was just sharing that if I wasn't sure if you had something teed up. Otherwise, I have a house that we're happy to jump into if you didn't have something that you already had prepared.
I do have something prepared today.
Okay.
But if you have a pressing need, we can certainly cover that.
I don't at all.
What I was going to go with today is we're going to, instead of taking it from a listing or a selling perspective, take it from a buyer's agent perspective when we're looking at properties and trying to come up with aggressive but reasonable offers and assess pricing. Is it overpriced? Is it not overpriced? That sort of thing. So just flip it a little bit today.
Like it.
Okay. Sound good, everybody? All right. Now I apologize for being late. I came down to plug into our my patch cable, so I'm directly into the 1 gig internet, and I couldn't find it. Like, it's a 50-foot patch cable. So how do you lose a 50-foot patch cable? So I'm looking around. I'm down on my hands and knees looking under things, and my sweet little Roomba stole it and wadded it up into a big knot and pushed it under a piece of furniture. So I found it, but again, that's why I'm late. I'm so sorry. Okie dokie. Well, welcome to Pricing Pros. Let's get the workout started today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Some of you heard this already. What we're going to do is take a slightly different perspective today. Often on Pricing Pros, we're looking at properties that are going to be listed, and we're going to come up with a good pricing range to advise our sellers and take a look at the market, figure out where it should be priced. But today, I know a lot of us are working with buyers, and it's a little bit of a kooky, crazy market out there. So today on Pricing Pros, we're going to look at a property that's in a price range that's a little tough, as in loads of competition and tiny baby inventory, even more than some of the other categories. So I have been looking at this property. I have a client who is interested in it. So I have some thoughts on it and some research that I've done, but I'd like to put it out there and talk about some of the issues that are going on when representing buyers, when we're looking at properties to make offers on, and advise our clients on what they should be offering. All right, so we may also talk about some other aspects of value today, in addition to just straight up price, as a corollary to this whole discussion of value. And we all know that it's not just about the price, it's just a lot about the price, right? Okie dokie. So our property today is, I'm going to put it in the chat screen before I start sharing, is over in Charlotte Park, and it is 6357 Columbia Avenue. And that is in 37209. Sorry, I'm not yelling at you. I had my caps lock on. And the MLS number, if you prefer that, is 225-0045, and I'll be pulling that up. Okay. All righty. This is 1,117 square feet and a 3-bed, 2-bath. And it's not a new build over there. There's a lot of new construction going on over there, a lot of HPRs. So this is a bit of an anomaly over there. It's 117 Beat Street. Evidently, I'm typing that today. And 3-bed, 2-bath. All right. So I'm going to pull that up on the screen and let's get started. Any comments? Any questions? Any things you'd like us to touch on today? You know, but this is kind of for those who join us on Thrive, sometimes it's kind of a tales from the trench sort of thing. Please feel free. This is open forum. This is a workout for all of us. I'm not claiming to be a pricing pro. This is just a way to practice and get better at this and better represent our clients.
It's a cute house. How many offers do they have already?
0 that they're sharing.
Shop.
So, all right, so let's pull this up here. But that's as of late yesterday. I haven't reconnected this morning. All right. All right.
By cute, I was commenting on the inside. The outside's a little unique to me with the vertical slats. Stripes are back, I hear, or maybe, I don't know. Or vertical. Which ones do you not want to wear if you're my COVID size?
You never want the vertical. I mean, horizontal. You want vertical to make you look longer, not horizontal to make you look wider. Not that you look wide.
Well, this house wears it well.
Stripes make everybody look wide. So, all righty, here we go. Sharing the screen. Ooh, it went tiny. All righty. And you know, there's one thing about this little zoomy thing. When you get that, when you're sharing the screen and it brings your menu down, it covers up your bar up there. I think I need to flip it. All right, are we looking at 6357 Columbia on screen now? Awesome. All right, so some of the things that we do that you could do to to gather information before you jump into pricing is we want to look through the listing and see what we have here. 3 beds, 2 baths. It's been on the market one day. It went on the market yesterday, and when I went to look at it, there were 4 groups lined up, and I had the first showing. So there's a lot of interest in this. We know that anyway. All right, so we're going to look down in the remarks and see offers are due Friday. All right, so this is going to be pretty standard. Wham, bam, get your offer in, highest and best to start with. Now it doesn't say no escalation clause, so we can keep that in mind. Yeah, we're not necessarily going to come up with our best offer today, but we can consider that when we start looking at the pricing here as a buyer's agent. It is zoned R8 and you'd need a variance to build 2. So when you look at all the new construction that's going on there and the HPRs, the 2 on a lot, this one might not be as attractive to an investor who wants to tear down and build, right? So they're really probably marketing this to a first-time home buyer or an investor who wants to rent it, but not tear down and build. All right, previously rented for $1,400 a month. Okie doke. Looking down here, it's a small yard, and anything else? As we're scrolling through here, call out if you see anything that you're like, whoa, wait a minute, I want to ask a question about this. It is 1,100 square feet owner supplied. Owner supplied doesn't mean bad. It may have come from an appraisal or reappraisal, something like that, but we'll want to bump this up against the tax record, right? And if there's a discrepancy there, then we'd want to dig into that. All right, anything else? Anything else? All righty, let's peek over at the tax record and see if we find anything of interest over here. Okay, interesting map here. You can see all these new builds on the side. Let me get a larger map, not a smaller map. Zoom. All righty, so see what I see here. We've got new build. All right, new build. So this is a neighborhood rapidly changing, right? Okay. It is fairly centrally located. This is on Crowley Drive. Again, it's west. Here's Charlotte Park. Here's 40. So this is, and here's Charlotte Pike. So this is really close to the inner circle, right? This is a location that's super accessible to a lot of places. All right. Anything else we saw in the property report that's of question? Oh, we wanted to check the square footage. Now, square footage here says 1,150 square feet. Interesting. Often, the MLS says 1,117. It's interesting when you find the number to be higher in the tax record, right? Now, one thing I do know about this house, and this was in part in the instructions here, there's a lot of updates here. Original hardwoods, and they are beautiful. Updates made in 2018 include HVAC, roof appliances, blah, blah, blah. 2019, new plumbing, site work grading to improve lot drainage, and they provide documentation of this. So there's a lot of, this was built in 1950, but when they say renovated, they've touched on a lot of the systems, like the meat and gravy. This isn't lipstick on a pig renovation, probably, right? There's substantive changes that could account for pricing, right? Any comments on that?
Well, I have a question about the drainage. I wonder if that has something to do with flood issues.
Well, it's a good question. We had over here in the tax record, when we scroll all the way down, first thing we can check, we can see if it's in a FEMA flood zone. So no. So it doesn't mean it didn't have flooding, but it was unlikely caused by a natural disaster event kind of thing. And we're going to go back to the listing here, and this listing agent has done a wonderful job of including a lot of information, including the drainage work receipt and the new plumbing work that's been done by Hpr. And I have not opened the PCD yet, the property condition disclosure form, but I would be surprised if there's not something in there about plumbing and drainage. So let's open that up. Good question, Maria. All right. Okay. All right. Ooh, good. The sewer line to the street will need to be replaced. All right, estimated $3,500. So we want to put that down. And that would be a question that we'd want to look into. And again, we're representing a buyer at this point, and it's our obligation to make sure that our client reviews this information prior to making an offer, right? So just a reminder there. So anything that we see, sewer, septic, they've marked yes, and then they've put here the sewer line to the street will need to be replaced. And I don't see anything about flooding. All right. Okie doke. Let's go back. And here's the drainage work receipt. All right. So they want to create a positive slope away from the foundation of the home to drain from right to left. Okay, so that's possible that meant there was water going underneath the house, maybe. Again, I am not a drainage expert, so it's not my job to interpret this. I'm just familiarizing myself with this information in order to advise the client, you need to read all this. And if you have any questions, consult a professional. Right. All right, regrade along the right side of foundation from right. Okay. Hand finish grade to prepare for seeding. Oh, pretty plants. All right. Plumb downspouts into the lawn. All right. So it seems to be, it's a water issue that needed to be redirected towards the house. But again, it's not our job to interpret this. It's just our job to make sure we collect all the information and provide it to our buyer. Okay.
May I add, what I would do with that as well is, because I may not have, I'm like, oh, drainage RX. There's a vendor I could put in my vendor list for future needs, for issues that have drainage. So I'm always thinking and looking at resources like that as to, oh, this could be a resource that I could use for the future. So
good tip. All right, and lastly, or not lastly, I'm going to look at the Hpr quote. This was work that they have disclosed that was done in 2019. All right, to do a 2-bath drain and water repipe. All right. Now, I have no idea what that means. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know, but it's not my job to know. It would be nice if I'd know. I'd like to know, but it's not my job to explain that to the buyer. It's to make sure that she sees it and has the opportunity to look into this to best understand it before she makes an offer. All right. And then lastly, offer instructions. This is stuff that's important to the buyer, the seller, possibly price, possibly in addition to price. They have preferred close date. They want an occupancy. They're renovating a home for them to move into. Okay. Okay. So we've checked out all the information that's available to us in the, we should check lead-based paint and see if it's coated in lead-based paint. Oh, no knowledge. All right.
May I add one thing too, Rebecca, just before you move into the next section? Did you still have that tax record open for this property?
I do if I can find it.
CRS there, second to last tab.
Yep.
Oh, you had it.
There we go.
Would you go up to the map, top right, and then click View Larger Map?
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing that I will do is, for the flood, is look at the map itself. So if you click the arrows and then turn on the FEMA flood maps, left side.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yep, right there. And scroll down to FEMA flood zones. Boom. And then you can always use the subtract arrow to just see how close are the, obviously if you don't see any blue, but just to familiarize everyone with kind of how that looks. Click again, maybe. A long way from the water, looks like. There you go. So you can kind of see how this looks. If you're not familiar with this feature, it's very nice to use. I just figured I'd show it while you're on this. And I also sometimes use the recent sales and listings. So just as a side note, when I'm comping things, often I will click that and I'll hit last 6 months. And I'll do the same. You might have to scroll in a little bit more. I don't know why they're whited out there, Rebecca.
I'm sorry, do what?
They don't seem, can you click those? They don't seem selectable.
You mean go in a little further? Is that?
There we go. Yep. And then click the last 6 months.
There we go.
There you go. And you can go down to listings.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes I'll do active and sold there as well. And it gives me a color-coded map that's helpful to look. Oh, okay. So I'm a visual learner as well. So like it's helpful for me when I zoom in, I can see even closer. You can click on any of those listings and it'll take you straight till its MLS search, and you can see the date and the price that it sold for. So you can see, you can click on, you can view the report, you can go to MLS, you can do rollovers. I find this graphic also helpful in looking at some comps as well in a visual format.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody have questions about how to use that or how to use these additional labels? Again, this little double arrow here, boom, pop out, and then you can select some of these things, right?
Yeah, and this is in the CRS tax. So once you go into tax, then you have to click that view larger map. So when you're trying to figure out where is this again, just get in that habit. I do this on every property I look at. I always go to that view larger map, always click on the FEMA flood. Even if I want to see how far away is the river or rivers or water bodies, and then I use that. Thanks for letting me share.
I'm just going to do that again. All right, I'm on my listing. I click over here in record. That's the quickest way to get to the tax record for this particular listing. All right, then I'm here. I go to view larger map and do my little double arrows, and now I can play with the different layers that you can add on there.
And if you're not too comfortable with this system or would like to become more, there are RealTrax classes that teach the CRS tax system. I highly encourage it. Thanks for letting me share that.
Oh, thank you. And if you're looking for one of those classes, back in RealTrax, go to help, sign up for a class, go down that rabbit hole, you can see what's available, when it's available, where it's available. A lot of them are still online, but some of them are in person, mostly at the associations these days. Greater Nashville either just did one or about to do one on a CRS tax. I can't remember, an intro to that. So look for that one. It's called CRS Tax 1. All righty. All right, let's maybe dig into some pricing considerations. My husband's out. Drop the mic. Sorry if that was my alarm system, lets you know when people go in and out. All righty, so we've got a price of $318, or a listing price of $318.5. All right, square footage of 1,117 square feet against the tax record said 1,150. We'll go with 1,117 square feet. Not that the price per square foot is everything, the be all and end all, but I like to use it as one of the looks, the indicators that we put in our analysis. All right, 3 beds, 2 baths. All right, let's start doing some finding. All right, so I'm gonna go here and let's see, we want residential. Indeed, that's what we want. That's sort of, whoa, that's the default property class. The subtype, we're going to go single family residence. I don't want any modular homes. I don't want any manufactured homes, but I'm okay with everything else. And I don't want any condos. All right. So then the listing status. The default when you're using the RealTrack search in the new search tool is active, coming soon, hold, and under contract showing. I want to add under contract not showing, and I also want to do closed, and I'm going to do it in the last 6 months because things are moving so crazy right now. Anybody have thoughts on that? Oh, okay, we'll go with that then. I need to take my MLS number out if that's how I got to this place. There are, 5 different routes to get to this search, to create your search, but I did it by finding an MLS number. If you leave that MLS number in, how many results are you going to get? Trick question. Right? If you don't take the MLS number out, that's going to be the most limiting factor, and you'll only get that pulled back. And yes, I did learn that by not taking the MLS number back and being surprised that I only got 1 result. So. All right, I'm not going to limit by county because I'm going to do a map draw in a second. Let's see. All right, and let's limit it by now just by zip code so I don't get all of Davidson County. Just I want around that area, and then we'll start, the funnel starts out with a lot of stuff in the top of the funnel, and then we're going to start pushing it down. That's just the way I approach it. It doesn't mean it's the way everybody needs to do it. And I will put a limiter on beds and baths. I'm going to go on and say a minimum of 3 beds. All right. Square footage, I'm going to put a max square footage of, how do we feel about 1,600? And year built, it is 1950, built in 1950, but renovated. But I don't want anything, I don't want new construction. I don't want to compare it against the those HPRs, the new builds. However, I want to see them right now, so I'm not going to cut them out just yet. I want to see what's around. And I'll hit search. I got 83 listings. Okay, I like that place to start. I do. All right. Now what I'm going to do, now that I have a nice map, I've kind of zeroed in a little bit, I want to center on that address and then customize my map search around that property, that specific property. So over here, you go to center, pop this out, and I'm going to type the address in there, 6357 Columbia, and it found it. So I go clicky doodle, and then there's my little pen right there, my little pen. So again, there are lots of different ways to go about this. This is just one way, and I'll put another plug if somebody on the next Pricing Pros in 2 weeks or another one wants to take the reins or the mouse, as it were, and drive, and we can be your supporting group, your spotter as you're exercising. Please let me know. So happy to not be the only one talking. All right. So I'm going to start with a circle, and I'm going to go out a mile. All right, because again, we want to think partially like an appraiser, you know, a general guideline in an area where there are some comps, you know, a decent number of comps. An appraiser is probably not going to go out much further than a mile. All right, so I'm going to go on and limit it there. Now, I'm not done drawing, but that gets me down to 40 listings. Okay, so I'm zeroing in. Now, general rule of thumb, and again, please, anybody jump in with a question or a comment or a correction, an improvement to how I'm doing this. I'm happy to be your mouse at hand. Generally, we don't want to cross a major thoroughfare, right? So I want to get everything back over on this side of Charlotte. Now, I do know this area, and 40 is elevated somewhat here, and so it's not necessarily that Charlotte is completely cut off, that this property is completely cut off from Charlotte High. I'm okay leaving a couple in there, like this one. I don't mind leaving him in there. That one, he's on the other side of Charlotte, so I want to take this boundary and tighten it up there. So I click the draw tool. Now, when you first do that, it's going to give you the box around it, and that will change the diameter of your circle. All right. If I take that and try to do it, it's just going to make my circle smaller, but I don't want to do that. I want to click that and get all these little dots here. All right. And that's going to let me customize. Like I can pull it in, making a Pac-Man. All right. Anybody want to tell me how you feel about leaving this one in, like crossing 40 and leaving it in there? Are you comfortable with that? Do we want to take a look at it and see if it belongs in there? Or do we want to be hard and fast and not cross Interstate 40? And I don't know the answer to that. I'm just putting it out there. Ted, you're very familiar with this area. Could I put you on the spot and see, tap into your expertise of this area?
For sure. Yeah, I'm doing a similar charting over here. I own a property not far from there, and I wouldn't necessarily consider that side Charlotte Park, but I know it's called that. So I wouldn't cross Charlotte. So it's going to eliminate that 445 one.
Yeah.
But that 355 would be in there.
Okay.
And I also would stay on the left side of White Bridge, which I think all those comps are.
Well, let me zoom in just a little bit. So I see what you're saying. This is White Bridge, right?
Yep, that's White Bridge. Well, it turns into Briley. It's actually Briley there.
I see what you're saying. Okay. All right.
But thankfully, the circle doesn't capture any of those. And then, yeah.
But good point. I hadn't looked over there. So I'm going to get back over here. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, there were some of, got to scoot my thing back up now. Click, click. All right, there we go. Why are you not doing that? Sorry. Operator error. You get back to where I can. There we go. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, there were some over there, and we don't want to cross that major. Right? So we'll just dig it in a little bit. All right. And let's just then refresh our search. Looks like a jellyfish to me going that way. Little Rorschach action. All right. So now I want to go and look at my list now. And I may want to revisit my, to refine my search, to add some more criteria. Again, to push that stuff down the funnel more and hone in on those things that are the best comps. All right. So we click again, and again over here, when you want to refine your search, it's just refine search, hide search, refine search. All right. So we've got things built in 1950, 2014, and 1948. So I want to revisit limiting by when it was built. Do we have a bid for the max year built? This was 1950, renovated, but not gutted to the studs. So it's not effectively new, right? What do we feel comfortable with here? Mary, I saw your mouth move, but I think you're muted. What'd you say there?
I would think you could go, I mean, up to like 1971, maybe.
Okay. I like 1971. It was a great year for Virgos born on September 2nd, hypothetically speaking. So anybody else? I like that, Mary, because you're going 20 years over, but not so far up.
I put 2019, and that may sound very bizarre, but I'll just share my rationale in that.
Please do. I'd like to hear. So we'll do 1971 and then we'll do 2019. How's that?
Yeah. I just because I find that, well, what I did was when I ran it with, I didn't put a year built to when I first ran it, and I saw there was some newer construction in there that to me looks like it's a mixed use development, or not mixed use. It looks like an HPR, but it's put in as site built. And so I'm trying to eliminate sort of that newer non-comparable stuff. So when I did 2019, I can tell you that what I narrowed down to without, I have nothing that's newer than 1964 with a 2019, ironically, but I would wean it back if it got too new. But I find that sometimes that 50s and 60s stuff, it still compares to the 80s and 90s stuff, especially if it's been renovated nicely. So I tend to not restrict year built. I only restrict like the newer stuff being the last 5 years compared to older stuff, because I find our product blend, but it's case by case. So I'm not opposed to the 71 at all. I'm just sharing that, again, it's this open forum of different ways to consider and choose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, go ahead, Mary.
If your buyer is looking at that for an investment property, and you said looking at it, it looks like that wouldn't be the case. But wouldn't you do that search obviously differently, because you would want to see those because they're looking at it as an investment versus to move in? I don't know, just a thought.
Oh, one more question. I noticed that we have 4 bedrooms in some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Does it make any difference?
It's a great point. We also have 1 bathroom in some of these rather than 2 bathrooms, and we have 2 bathrooms. Now, I will share, and this is just based on research I did. I went to we talked last time about the parcel viewer, right? Where we can find information about a property, it's Metro government. And I looked in there and I found some information about some permits. And what I know is that the carport was turned into a master, and that's where the second full bath came in. So the carport was new. I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but it wasn't 1950. All right, so they closed in the carport and put a full second bath. And so part of the house is newer. All right, so just to keep that in mind. That's where we got the second bath, because that's where we got the second bed and the second bath. This used to be a 2-bed, 1 bath. All right. All righty. So with 1971 as the max build date, we had 20 listings. When we open that up to 2019, we have 33 listings. So just again, different ways of looking at things. And you know, as we always say in Pricing Pros is not a one and done. It is an iterative process where you know, try things and take a look, and then you try things and you take a look. We're trying to hone in, sharpen our analysis. And to your point, Mary, you might look at it slightly differently as an investor than as a single home buyer. But from our perspective of advising what a fair price to purchase for, we don't have to make that distinction, I would argue. Right.
From what I would understand an appraiser might do, if something is 10 years or older, it would still comp with a 1950s home. It may not to the buyer, but that's not going to be as a distinguishing point as much as limiting square footage, which I put at 1,800 as my max, and definitely only 3-bed, 2-bath minimum.
So you went to 1,800 square feet?
I did,
Okay.
but that may be too much. Did you put 16?
I had 16.
I also had put subdivision as Charlotte, and that's one of the ways that it had got rid of a lot of things, but I wouldn't typically restrict by that. I would use, that would distinguish only people that use the word Charlotte Park as a distinction.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I look, so you limited subdivision?
I did to start because I was just like, I want to see what people are calling Charlotte Park,
right,
compared to my map, and so it was interesting to see that there's other communities. I don't love subdivision as a thing. As you can see when you do it, you can see a lot of people, sometimes they don't change the name of the subdivision when they import a listing, and so it used to be a little trick. You could find some off-market properties. People would list things in Sylvan Park, and it would say the estate of so-and-so is the subdivision. And so people that would search Sylvan Park or Sylvan wouldn't find property. So the map search, the fact that they've now geocoded all listings, you must have a geocode to a listing. The map search works great.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. What about, Ted, what about so you said you limited it to 3-bed, 2-bath. Did you do it 3-bed, 2-bath minimum, or did you cap it at 3?
I did minimum to start, and then I normally will run my search and then look at my list and see, oh my gosh, there's a 5-bedroom or a 3-bath. And maybe I won't eliminate the 3-bath unless I wanted to restrict my data further. So,
Gotcha.
but I certainly could because, or I mean, it wouldn't be outside the realm because it definitely can shift comps. In this case, from what I'm seeing, everything looks pretty comparable in there. You have a few half baths, but that doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, influence it dramatically.
Oh, look, there's a village agent, Deborah Volley. Go, Deborah. So, question, Ted. You know, I've gotten a little more experience under my belt these days through Pricing Pros, and I find that I jump to conclusions about properties sometimes, even when I'm just looking at something like this. I'll give you an example. And then this is just a question to the group. So I look at built-in, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, here we go. A 3-3, 1,600 square feet, built in 2017. It looks
There's
like
a great example of a subdivision. There is obviously no subdivision of the 611 Waco Drive homes. So
sorry. What I was going to say is, I look at that and I think that's an HPR that was built as an Airbnb.
it very likely could be, and if it was being used as such, it would certainly influence the value.
Well,
How do you come to that conclusion?
Great question.
it's a great question, and it speaks to the point of bias, and I have to challenge myself not to just immediately kick that out for any particular, because I think it might have been. Now, I know that I happen to know that this area is all zoned residential, so there's no non-owner occupied short-term rental permit available for purchasing anything in this area. So this wouldn't be appealing to somebody who wants to buy it, just this one unit, because as for an investment for short-term rental, right?
What about it? What about it, Rebecca? From what you saw, had you think that it was that?
3-bed, 3-bath.
Okay. So it was the bath count that made you think, okay, cool.
Yeah, to me, because when I think of, a single family home that you're not using for a 3-bed, 3-bath, or for a short-term rental like that, 3-bed, 2-bath seems to me the smarter use of space. You can have a bigger master, with a master suite kind of thing. Again, this is bias in my brain. And so I have to challenge myself, don't just eliminate something because you feel like that was, it falls into this category or the other. Like, follow a process. Anyway, but it can also be, I mean, I do think there's something to be said, Ted. I'm sure you can look at a certain property and be like, boom, I know everything about that without even seeing it.
Definitely not the case, but I have built homes with builders where we did have a 3-3, and we didn't have the master on the main, so it necessitated 2 baths upstairs, and we had the room downstairs to put a full bath versus just a half. And so we went ahead and threw in the shower to make it more marketable, especially in that kind of skinny HPR product where there was a lot of competition a few years ago.
Gotcha. All righty. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Okie dokie. Are we feeling pretty good about the list? We want to run our first CMA to see what it looks like, or any other tweaks that someone would like to make before we run it. Anything?
I do think that year built is going to come into play where we may need to eliminate some of that newer stuff, possibly.
Okay. Well, let's just take a look, see what it looks like, and we can revisit. So we're not going to pull out anything in particular. Now, one thing you could do at this point, which we did with Davidson, 937 Davidson that we looked at last time, and Nelson, and she is going to market with that shortly. We went through pretty much every thumbnail. And that's one way of looking. Anne wanted to look and see if it says renovated. She wanted to eyeball it and see, really, is it renovated or really not? So we're not going to do this on this time. Okay. So feel free to do that yourself. All righty. We're going to select all, and we go over to, so that's just this checkbox at the top. You don't have to check each one individually, blah, blah, blah. You can select them all. Now, if there happened to be one that you thought, I want to pull that one out. This is a 321, 1,600 square feet. I don't want to redo my search right now, but I do want to eliminate that one. You can always uncheck a box and change your selection. Oops. Go up to the 3 dots in the corner, and I'm going to pick just a regular old CMA. All righty, looks familiar, right? All right, here's our subject property. All right. And then I'm going to skip over under contract showing for the moment. Under contract not showing, and I'm going to come on down to closed. Can we see all of them? Yeah, we can see all of them there. All right. Anybody want to comment on what we're seeing in this CMA as we've run it right now?
There's a 121 of an acre. Is that okay?
On this one? I think that's okay. I think anything under 1/3 to 1/2 of an acre is, again, it comes to bear, it could come to bear on the zoning in terms of what you can build on the property. We already have a clue that you can't build to on this one without a variance, so I'm not necessarily worried about the square footage of the yard. That's my thought.
Okay, all right.
It also has a 3-car garage, which obviously would not necessarily be comparable to the subject that has 0, but when you click on the thumbnail, the house is kind of rough. So it's sold as is, and so it may not be a comp, but I don't know if the data, I don't think an appraiser would use it as a comp, but I don't know that it's necessarily skewing the comps at $242 a foot.
Where is that 3-car garage?
I don't know, but it says 3-car. And again, we have to go back to, there could be some human error in that, right? Like it says parking garage, it says 3/private. So that they may have meant you could park 3 cars off street, but they put it in garage. So we always need to be, if garage becomes a distinguishing factor, which it can in infill, be mindful that there can be a space where there can be often human.
Right. I'm glad you pointed that out. I always try to say that the information, the data we find in MLS is only as good as what gets entered by a listing agent. Now, some of the information is pulled from CRS tax, of course, from the tax record. Tax record isn't always right either, but this is what we have to go with. If we see something glaringly like there's no garage there, we can adjust our analysis based on that. But there's comes a point where we kind of have to go with this. All right, anything else? Square footage, and you can see, let's scroll down to the bottom. And Ted, I'm glad you pointed out that one was sold as is. This one is not sold as is. And so when we go back to refine our search, we might want to scroll through just the thumb and see for anything that's sold as is, we might want to pull it out. If anything says tear down, we want to pull it out because this is not a tear down, our subject property.
Should we take out the ones with garage spaces altogether?
Possibly. We can do that, or we can, think like an appraiser, and not that we are appraisers, and when the comp is better, you subtract value from it, and when the subject property is better, you add value to the comp, right? Remember that from pre-licensing. When the comp is better, what do? Subtract. And when this subject is better, you add. All right. All right, anything else? We comfortable with the square footage range? Do we want to drop that down? We only had that. All right, so we don't have anything. I don't know, I'm comfortable with that range. What about baths? Do we want to take out anything that's only, we took out 1 bath, didn't we? Do we want to take out any houses that have 4 bedrooms? I don't think so myself. Ted, what do you think? To me, I think the delta, if the bath, I think the bath count is different, that especially in this square footage range.
Yes, I was going to say that the square footage kind of, if 4 bedrooms, I don't know how you can get it into 1,100 square feet, but that's what it says. So doesn't make any difference.
All right. I do want to point out this one that closed, the 6521B Premier. It was on the market for 138 days. And we only looked at closed from 6 months. What do you think was up with that? Anybody have a guess? To me, that just jumps out a little bit in this market. Like when I go back, I wanted to, and this one up here, days on market, 94 days.
Yeah, I showed it. It was a Royal POS.
This Maxon?
No, Premier. It actually backs up to Will Clay.
Oh, does it?
So this is a property where you can use this chance to show, but if you ever want to see like, well, why did this sit so long? It looks pretty nice inside. You could do some further digging and not have to have that inside knowledge to kind of see what happened there. If you ever clicked on the map or the record, you would be able to see that what happened is the neighboring house sold off this sliver of land, or a builder developer bought the corner lot, it was zoned for 2, and they cut off, this is the original house, and they cut off that sliver to just adjacent to it. They slid a house in there in between where that driveway, like they have
Here?
added a house in there.
Where? Here?
Right there. I own the house two doors down from that, and can do
Here?
the same thing the other way. That's Wilco.
Oh, that's right. You're on the corner. You're here.
Right there.
No?
So I could do the same thing of cut off the sliver on the right side of that lot and squeeze a house in there, believe it or not. But they did that on that property, and they really did a terrible job on the renovation of that on that premier property.
All right. By any chance, was Speedy the pig present when you showed it?
The pig, there is a pig that lives between the backyard of the house between mine and that one on Premier named Speedy, if you've seen my Facebook page. And no, he was never present for showings, but I've had plenty of dealings with him as my neighbor.
Okay. All righty. Well, thanks for that insight. All right. See, it's always good when you're doing a CMA. There's nothing wrong with, actually, there's something very right about pairing up with somebody and just saying, hey, do you have a second? Would you just take a look at this and, give me your thoughts, anything jump out? If somebody's got 5 minutes to do it, they're going to be happy to do it, and it helps them as well. So.
Well, and as you click through the photos, what's weird about this house, I showed it to a client. I wouldn't have imagined. These photos look really cute. This house is terrible inside. It is one of the worst renovations I've ever seen. But one of the photos you'll see, because that's a really pretty, they paid for Matterport, blah, blah, blah. One of the photos is the empty lot next door, and they actually wrote additional building lot being sold separately. And that would also kind of give you some insight as to, okay, what happened there. You can see the new fence. There it is. When you click on that, you can see that they basically took the driveway that got you to the back of the original house, and they cut this skinny lot here and there. A lot of money is made that way in properties. Whenever you can find one that's the only reason I bought that house 2 doors down, was that it was zoned for 2. I use it as a rental right now, but eventually I will either squeeze another one in here, or more likely what I'll do is just scrape it and build 2 that are more appropriately sized and use the lot fairly.
So the subject property is over here on the right, over the right fence.
Exactly.
Okay. All righty.
The pig is over that back fence.
All righty.
That's all I got on that. But I think it's helpful when you're looking at comps and looking at infill, and you see it's a comparison. It's deceiving though, because that house looks really good. It sat for a long time. And I think they may have put it to the market before they were finished. So sometimes be mindful of that. If you see a lot of days on market, that doesn't necessarily mean that it just sat, right? They may have put it on pre-completion.
Right. Gotcha.
I'm sorry about that.
No, all good. All righty. So the last thing I was going to do is just run through these 19 in the thumbnail sketch and scroll through and see, do I see anything that says sold as is, tear down, investor special, anything that's been shared through here that might give me pause to look further into it. All right.
I'll add to that one you passed by. I mean, several of these look like HPRs, right? And some may be single family. So I know you chose site built, but be mindful that agents sometimes either mistakenly or.
Actually, Ted, we included, hey, it took away my stuff. I did site built, 0 lot line, HPR attached and detached. Not sure why that might have taken away my things, but all right. All right.
I'm pretty picky, just again, sharing ideas of how we comp. I have become pretty picky about not including HPRs on single families.
Okay.
But I'm not saying you should. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying, like, from a comp purpose, a single family home in my opinion, is worth more than an HPR.
Right.
And appraisers are pretty keen to it as well, especially attached HPRs versus detached single family. Now, you might need that data to help support your value or just as good knowledge, because in this market with such limited inventory, it becomes less distinguishable, right? People need transportation. 4 wheels and a steering wheel will get you there. And if there's none to be chosen, you'll take anything. So I'd say the comps aren't right now. It's a little different. I'd say that they're not as scrutinous about a lot of things. If it's in the area and it's got a roof and a shitter, you might have a good chance it's gonna come. Oh goodness, sorry for my.
All right, and so as we're glancing through, to Ted's point, you can see I'm glancing through. This is our subject property over here. As we're scrolling through, I'm looking, also glancing over here, residential site built, anything I'm looking for as is, investor special, anything that might kind of HPR detached. All right, so again, doesn't mean we pull it out. It could be the situation like Premier that we just looked at, right? But you might want to click and look a little closer at it to see if it really belongs in there. This is where we're really, finessing the analysis for that last little push down the funnel before we feel pretty good about, the CMA that we've got. All right, HPR detached. Selling as is. All right, do we think we might want to pull that one out? Maybe. Generally, if it says being sold as is, I do. So we could look closer, but I'm just going to make an executive decision to take it out. And in order to take it out of your list, you see this little grayed out check box, because I had everything checked. I'm going to make sure that's unchecked. Okay. All right, residential site built. Anything else? Anything jump out? Sold as is. All right, 816 Nashua Court. So I'm just gonna, at this point, just make an assumption that we want to take that out. May not, you might want to look closer at it. Anything else? Oh, there's Premier. So Ted, you say you think based on what you know, your firsthand knowledge of this, we should take out 6521B Premier or leave it in?
I think you can leave it in. I mean, it's
okay.
I think from a data perspective, it doesn't hurt or improve.
Okay.
It sits in the averages.
All righty. Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to go back to the list. I'm going to run the CMA one more time. I'm going to select everything. But again, I don't know why it just unselected all the things I selected, but it did. I'm going to take out 304 Errol. That was one that was being sold as is. And then 816 Nashua. I thought it was 816 Nashua. All right. And then I'm going to go back and run my CMA. And now feeling pretty good about it. All right. So looking down at the sale price per square foot. Again, that's not everything, but that's one of the things. I'm sorry, let's start over here. Acres. All right, the average is about around our acreage, which is 0.15, right? And then 3 beds, 2 baths. So that's right in a line. That's the average and the median of our property. Feeling pretty good. Average build date was 1994. Ours was 1950. So that could be a reason why we might adjust the pricing down a little bit. Again, when the comp is better, you add value to the comp. So average of 1 garage space, average square footage is higher, right? Higher than ours of 1,117. Here's the average list price per square foot and the average sale price per square foot. All right. Now, our average our list price per square foot is 285 a square foot. All right. Anybody have thoughts about the price of the list price of 318.5? We know there's a new roof. We know that they've had plumbing done. We know that they've disclosed that the connection to the sewer needs to be redone at an estimated cost of $3,500. What other things are we thinking about here? Again, we're going to want to advise our clients on what to offer. And we know, I mean, are we going to offer list price? And now we're starting to ask questions of our client, like how upset would you be if you didn't get it, blah, blah, blah. But we're also thinking, is this going to appraise? And we're not appraisers, and I don't have a magic or a crystal ball or a magic 8 ball anymore, used to. So I don't know if it would appraise at this price. But if we end up, if we advise an offer price of above this, how far away from a possible appraisal value are we getting? And again, I don't know the answer to that. These are just questions that we're all facing as we're representing buyer clients in this crazy market. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? I feel like we've accomplished the goal of Pricing Pros today, which is to have this conversation about pricing and go through the process and go through this exercise. And, you know, it seems like most of the time in Pricing Pros, we don't come up with an answer per se, but that's not the point. It's to go through the exercise and the reps, as we like to say, and get the experience. So we are into the after party at this point. I want to be cognizant that people have other things to do other than my fixation on pricing exercises. But if somebody wants to, if we want to change things up, you want to call out some changes to the to our filters, we'll do this again. We've already put this much work in, and in this new interface, unfortunately, we cannot save the work that we've done. And I need to mention that every time we do this, we are going to have to practice in this new RealTrax interface, but they still have not added the functionality. So when I ran my CMA yesterday, or I did this process yesterday, I did do it in the old interface so I could save it and go back. And
I would offer too that our subject property is quite small. You'll notice that only the first 4 closed sales are under 1,300 square feet. So the subject property is in the 1100s. And therefore, typically the smaller the house, the higher the price per foot. So I'll share that when I'm working with buyers and sellers, that there's an economies of scale that typically exists, but all things aren't equal. So that's why we see price per foots vary. In addition to the market in December is radically different than the market in May, even though 6 months is well within appraiser standards. So it's becoming, as we know, it's really about what's the buyer willing to pay. You know, what they would likely ask is, what do you think is too much to pay for this house? And based on this data, is it a data decision or an emotional decision? How much do you need or want this house? What would you be comfortable sleeping at night knowing you lost this house? Those are some of the dialogues that I would suggest to have with the buyer of, it could not appraise. There's a high chance of that. What do I think this home will sell for? I think it'll go for north of 350 all day long. I think if I was to be putting an offer, I don't know that I would feel comfortable going over 375. But as you can see, if we scroll back up, how many homes are active on the market? Oh, there's one, the one you're looking at. So unfortunately, we didn't restrict the top end on price, and you can see there's nothing on the market. So is 375 too much? Well, I guess it depends on what are your choices and your timing and your passion about the area. So I wouldn't want to spend over 375. I would never put an offer at 350. I would go 352 or 353.5. You know, maybe do an escalation clause starting at 326. I'd start my base price at 326 and I'd escalate up to 353 500 or 353 800, and I'd go 1800 over the highest and best offer up to 353 800. Do you follow that madness?
I just, I mean, never say never. And I'm not an appraiser. I can't say that enough. I cannot see this house appraising at 375.
I don't think it appraise at 375. It might pull 350. It will pull as soon as this one closes. The next one, that's why the comps are so messed up right now. I mean, just, and they're not messed up. They're just what they are. But I mean, as far as following some logical standard, we are seeing so many things. Buyers are bringing cash to cover the difference. Appraiser said to me yesterday, he goes, it's not my job. What did he say? I said, how are you all doing it out there? He goes, my job is to count how many people jump off the bridge and how deep. What is it worth it? Or something like that. I was like, okay. I mean, and it really is. It's not their job to say, is it worth it or any of that. Is, does the data support it? And when people bring cash or pay 15 million for a Picasso, that became the price of that piece that day for that person. And so it's going to get quote unquote easier to run comps as we continue to see people pay over list price, but they are continuing to go up. And we're not seeing many signs of a crash or a bubble. Talked to a lot of people about that question, and there is no expectations that that is going to change.
Well, alas, the data points that lenders use are not escalating at the same rate as the property values here. So what we're seeing, and this is, you know, part of the bigger conversation, which I think is important beyond price, which is housing affordability in Nashville. And, you know, when we're working with first-time home buyers, and we have people who are first-time home buyers and they're qualified for 320. You know, this home is unlikely for them. Unlikely. Doesn't mean we don't, you know, encourage and educate and go through the process and advise, but very careful to level set expectations, but also not to set up a defeatist attitude. Like, what's the best we can do? Let's talk about the best offer we can put together with the tools you have in your tool belt. You don't have cash to cover, you know, the delta if it doesn't appraise. We can't offer that. If somebody offers that and a higher price, that could win, right? So it's just all part of the conversation. 375. I don't know, Dad. Oh my goodness, that's kooky. What is 375?
I'd love to follow and see. This would be a great one, and I know, Rebecca, you have more of that skill to do that. But if you get it or not, put this one on your list to follow up with what it closes for.
So at 375, 375,000, that would be 335.72 a square foot.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything there yet, but again, I've seen a 296 and it's smaller than any of those. And so.
Yeah.
Four Seasons is $2,000 a square foot. What's insane? I don't know. Somebody willing to pay it. People buy Teslas, $100,000 cars like it's nothing.
Yeah, and as we look down here too, this is an interesting, to me, I like data. And so I like to look at all different aspects of it. When I scroll down here and I look at the listing price and then I look at the sales price, far and above, most of them closed at, they're sold at higher than they were listed at, right? Which we know is the case, but not everyone. The one that didn't, that sold lower, or well, two, I guess, that sold lower, it sat on the market. I mean, 26 days is considered stale, right? In this market right now. We have any others? 320, 325, 358. This one just barely, but that was the premier one that sat on the market for a while that we talked about earlier. This one sold right at, that one sold 20 over, I'm sorry, 15 over, that one's 5 over, that one's 10 over, so. And $10,000 in this price range is significant, right? $10,000 in the $1 million price range is like, I wouldn't be worried about an appraisal, you know, meeting an appraisal in that price range for $10,000 over, $20,000 over, but it's a lot in this price range. All righty. Well, is there anything else before we sign off for this edition of Pricing Pros? Thank you all so very much for showing up today and doing the workout with us. Appreciate your input and your interest in getting better at this. And if you have a property you'd like us to look at, just forward it to me or to Ted, and we'll try to fit it in. Our next Pricing Pros is 2 weeks from today. Is that right, Ted? Are we the first and third Thursday or the first and second? First and third? For 30 minutes, of course. Yeah, because that's all we do on Pricing Pros, right? You're on mute, Ted, in case you're talking to us. I
This
think
has been super
Oh.
helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Mary. Mary B. Thank you for joining us. Oh, he's on the phone. He's moved on.